Welcome to BofC Live, the daily video and podcast series of Business of Cannabis. BofC Live highlights the company's brands, people, and trends driving the global cannabis sector. Learn more at businessofcannabis.com. Our BofC Live guest today is Lori Hatcher. She is the head of marketing for Truss Beverage Company. They have a suite of cannabis beverages out on the market in Canada. We wanted to check with her to see what it was like to launch an entire category for consumers and how that launch has been going. Lori, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Jay. I've been following your work for a long time, and I'm excited to be here to talk about beverages.
Well, I'm excited to talk about beverages, and I was looking at an image that the team sent over of the array of the Truss Beverages, and I was like, looks a lot like the fridge right now.
I love to hear that. We'll have to talk about your favorite as we chat through this.
Well, I'll tell you right now.
Together.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, and then we'll get into it because maybe my experience is illustrative of what's going on with consumers generally, but I have found the House of Terpenes, and I think a lot of bud tenders are talking about House of Terpenes when saying like what's good, and so that I really do like. Molo, someone gave me a bunch of Molo, and I was like, oh, I like that too. And then the folks at Superette got me onto XMGs or MXGs. I'm going to screw up the names, which is bad for this, but I'm drinking them anyway, so it's good. But I want to, before we get to sort of those specifics and sort of how I found it, like it is such a unique challenge and something that case studies I think will be written about, like the cannabis industry in Canada built a category. Like that's pretty unique. And I mean, you tell me, and your sort of deep background of CPG, like tell me about how that is and how it's going.
Amazing. It's my favorite topic, which is the consumer, and we could not be here without them. So I started Truss in January of 2019. We're a joint venture between Molson and Hexo, and we wanted to be leaders in cannabis beverages, and this category didn't exist in Canada and really not really the world, because in California at the time it was only really very, very high dose beverages.
Yeah.
And that was an amazing challenge. And that's exactly why I joined Truss, because there are very, very few times to have the opportunity to build something completely from scratch, new industry, new portfolio of brands, new category.
Yeah.
So I guess your question is, how do you start?
Yeah.
And you start with the consumer. And so before we kind of get in, I should probably say that we think of ourselves a little bit differently, I think, from some of our other friends and other LPs in the industry. We're beverage first. We consider ourselves a beverage category, and it's kind of a blessing that we only just focus on this one category. And so the way we started was beverage occasions. So we know in Canada, this is a huge number, but there's 140 billion beverage occasions a year. Around 10 per day per Canadian. And so we started to think about occasions and what big kind of occasions are there where cannabis beverages could be a really good alternative. So we identified 5 of them, and some are what you'd expect. So one is called socialize, and that would be an occasion where a craft beer would fall in there. So it's like you're with friends, you're socializing, you bring something with a story, you're bringing something new to share with your friends. There's ones called Celebrate, which is a more celebratory occasion, the Prosecco occasion, my Friday night occasion. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those kind of occasions you associate alcohol with, but then there's a whole other world of cannabis, which is so exciting, which is, more wellness-oriented occasions and even degrees of performance. And so we kind of started there. And then we basically built a community of consumers, and we have heavy users, we have non-users, and we started talking about these occasions and where they think beverages could actually play a role in their life. And at the very beginning, we did some rapid prototyping and with the consumers, where we went in and talked to them and literally drew up ideas with them to get their feedback. And that's how we built the initial portfolio. So it was all about occasion, some rapid prototyping, and we had to figure out, what kind of drinks they'd want on this occasion. Not only that, what kind of cannabis experience they want and kind of bring that together and ensure that we deliver consistency and make sure it tastes great. So that was a long time of exploration to get there. When I talk about community and consumers, I should also talk about, we worked with people like mixologists, people who really know the crafting of beverages and how to do it. We also work with terpene experts and the cannabis experts over at Hexo. And then of course, bud tenders and those in the community. So we wanted to really have one brand per occasion. The big occasions we identified. So that's what led us to the launch of a portfolio of 5 brands, really, really different beverage types and really, really different cannabis experience or cannabis dosing in each of them.
Yes.
So that was the approach.
It sounds like so much fun.
It was incredibly fun. And one of the most interesting things is, like, I come from, like you said, CPG, so on brands like Cheerios. And when you want to launch a new Cheerio, you develop the Cheerio and then you have people look at the concept, you have them try it, and you improve it over time. And in cannabis, you can't do that. Of course, you can't have consumers trying the product while you're in development. So the other thing that's really interesting about Truss, as we said, our focus groups will be when we launch.
Right.
So last fall, we launched 5 brands. We launched 13 SKUs. And we'd really have the results of our focus group from all of Canada.
And that's actually the interesting part, because as you're thinking about the occasions and the consumers and the different types of consumers, different types of occasions, and then you sort of reach the focus group part, which is consumers are actually getting it now.
Yeah.
But they're getting it now in a lockdown mode or in some capacity over the past year, which is, of course, a challenge. But then you see, like, it's a new category for consumers too, right? Yes. And that's also interesting. Like Cheerios, they're going to know it's Cheerios plus something else, like it.
And they know what cereal is.
That's right. It's whole grain Cheerios, it's honey nut Cheerios, it's apple, like whatever it is. This is like, oh, I'm going to store. I'm thinking of buying some pre-rolls, some dry flour, and maybe some edibles. And now I see beverages which look great, better than the packaging on other stuff. No offense to everybody else. And then they start doing the occasion-based thinking, I would imagine. And like, talk about that, because like, it must be interesting to of course, to get the data, the results, but also like what you're hearing on the ground of consumers going in a store and saying, oh, that House of Terpenes thing looks like something that might be interesting for my occasion. Or
so what I'll say is we're getting a lot of great feedback, and I can only promise that it's going to change. Because this category has really only existed for 6 months. So I would say we're at a very, very exploratory stage, much like you said, you've tried a lot of them. Yeah. People are trying out almost everything to see what fits for them.
Yeah.
So I think when you talk about that in-store experience, one of the things we have to make sure with beverages, because this is a new category, it never really existed on illicit market. You're not going and saying, oh, I want to get some beverages. We have to make sure it's seen. There's like a beverage destination and people kind of know it exists. And then in terms of kind of what we're hearing in our first 6 months is there's kind of, there's totally different consumers. So like I said, we have all these different occasions based on different consumers, and that's what we're seeing. So the biggest segment right now is what we'll call kind of the mid to higher dose. So that's like a 5 milligram to 10 milligram. And there's a group of consumers that are choosing their beverage based on the experience they're dosing.
Right.
And so that's why we see a brand like XMG, which you said you have in the back of your fridge, is actually the #1 brand in the category. It's 10 milligram. It's really flavor forward. It's in a nice little small format. And we're seeing, some of those more experienced consumers, trying that at the higher range of dosing. The funny thing is our second biggest brand is our microdose brand. So we have a brand called Little Victory. It's 2.5 milligrams THC, 2.5 is CBD, kind of really flavorful, sparkling beverage. And that's our #2 brand. And that's more about, celebrating with friends, having a couple over the course of the evening, or maybe having a couple, I guess right now at home watching Netflix. But two brands completely different are the top two. And I think that's what we're going to see evolve quickly over time. If we look to California, when we started going there at the very beginning to see what was in market, like I said, there's all these really high dose, like Canna Quenchers, like 100 milligrams. And now the number one brand in California is Can. It has 2 milligrams THC.
Right.
Microdose, sessionable, social. And I imagine that over time, I think, the Canadian consumers will start migrating more into maybe those lower dose. So those are some of the key learnings from the beginning. The other thing is, it's no surprise, but it's all about taste. So people want them to taste delicious, not really have a strong cannabis taste generally. And the other thing is when, we have social community, they talk to us, people are really intrigued by the difference. So when you talk about something like House of Terpenes, brands like Molo, there's, or XMG, there's analogs. House of Terpenes, we're inspired by terpenes. We've taken, pure botanical terpenes and concocted curated mocktails around it. So we have our limonene. We look at other botanicals, other fruit that have limonene, and then concoct a mocktail. And these are things that, no one's ever tasted before. And we're getting feedback that consumers are having a lot of fun exploring those areas as well.
Yeah, it really is. In addition to being delicious and fun and sessionable and all the things you talked about, the sort of business school case study that will be written about this category at this specific time, and how companies thought about it, how consumers thought about it, how those two things interacted. And especially in the biggest markets, well, every market in Canada, it's been during this very strange time where people, it is very, I guess this is the question. I think it's something, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, the more people go into store, the more they're going to buy in general, but also this is something that is eye-catching. There's a cooler in a lot of places. It actually has a really fun experience to it that I think will just take off as we get back in store, hopefully.
Yeah. Summer season's going to be super key. It's huge season overall for beverages outside of cannabis. Mm-hmm. So something like 46% of beverages are sold in the summer months. And so getting into those summer occasions this is going to be our first really big season. And when I think about the last year, one of the things we haven't been able to take advantage of for a brand new category is those get-togethers. If you think about if there's something you've never tried before, you want to hear about it from someone you trust, a friend, etc. And we haven't really had any of those social occasions. So, this summer, if lockdown ends and we're kind of having social distance get-togethers, we actually think it's going to be a huge season. Actually, I call it the summer of CIB. Because finally we'll be getting back together with friends. I'm really confident that CIB is going to show up at some of these gatherings, and then people will be able to talk about it, talk about their experience, give recommendations, like you heard from the gang at Superette, and try these. And we've had kind of absence of that kind of word of mouth for the last year since we launched. So I think summer is going to be really big overall for the category.
Well, we're going to be doing our part here.
Good.
In the West End of Toronto. No, because it is a fun, it is a fun category, and it actually is a fun shopping experience too. And I guess when you think about it, the way people will be in store, have been in store for the limited time, is it analogous almost to it's not an accessory, but almost like a pre-roll. I'll take a pre-roll with that. I'll take a beverage with that because I have my purchase, the thing I know, and it's not the afterthought, but the add-on. You're wouldn't it be fun if I brought home 4 Molos as well? And that would be a fun thing to bring home.
That's what we're seeing with early data from our partners and retail partners, that consumers are kind of looking at as an add-on, not a planned purchase yet. Right. So they're going and getting, they might have a usual weekly purchase, and they're when they see it, they're buying as an add-on, trying a few different ones and exploring through the category. And that's going to be really, really important as they trial and have the experience to get them to kind of move on to the category more consistently.
Yeah, I do see, this is not what you want to hear. Maybe I do see people drinking them on the street as well, because it's super discreet, obviously, right? You get it as soon as you get if you can get the childproofing off, not your fault.
Yeah.
Like the idea that like you can enjoy it on the street is interesting, especially as Toronto sort of grapples with drinking in parks, which I can't believe.
Well, Jay, do you want to know a fun fact?
Yes.
The cannabis regulations are very different than
I
alcohol
know.
in terms of drinking outside. So, as long as you're, with other adults, if you want to enjoy cannabis beverages in Trinity Bellwoods or another park, you can. It's very different from alcohol.
It's so funny though. It's like there's so many harsh restrictions, except on this one thing, where you could do what you want. It's funny. I mean, and actually it brings up another question, and then we'll let you get back to getting more beverages on people's shelves. One thing that is a pain point for beverages, especially, is the equivalency.
Yeah.
And you can only buy 4 at a time, which makes no sense, because as you're just saying, like some of them are 2.5, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's an advocacy effort behind it, but like that is a challenge, but also it also lends itself to like people trying a whole bunch every time. Like it's like, oh, I'll just buy 4 different ones and see what I like. And it sort of fits into this sessionable idea that people are still making their way through the category. And but hopefully at some point you pick up a 6-pack, like when people are used to buying stuff, right?
Yeah. The equivalency is a challenge for beverages for sure. So a consumer, say a regular like 355 milliliter can, even of a CBD beverage, could not buy more than 5 of them. So we agree that this is a challenge. When we talk about those social occasions, when you might want to bring a 6-pack or a 12-pack to a party, consumers aren't able to do that yet, and they have to go to multiple trips if they wanted to. We also have consumers reaching out on a daily basis asking for that. They want to be able to buy multiples and buy more. So this is a big priority for us. It impacts beverages more than any other category, and something we would really like to see fixed.
Seems like the simplest of regulatory changes, to be quite honest. There's some really challenging regulatory changes. This one actually seems quite simple. Yeah.
We hope to work with Health Canada on this and kind of get it adjusted.
Yeah. Well, Lori, I really appreciate the time, and I'm not just saying this, I do like the beverages.
Great.
And I'm excited to sort of see how it unfolds as we come out of this lockdown, whether it's in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and see how people are sort of buying what they're buying, how they're using. Like, I think that's all super fascinating from a case study perspective, but also from a brand perspective, and sort of putting what you talked about in the early days of like identifying occasions, identifying types of consumers, and then consumers actually filling that prophecy on the other end. I hope you'll come back and share how that's going.
I would love to. I'd like to come back anytime. Thanks so much, Jay. This was a great experience.
We'll talk to you soon. Be well.
Take care. Bye.
That was Lori Hatcher, the head of marketing at Truss Beverage Company, talking about all things cannabis beverages, what it's like to create your own category. If you like this program, please rate us and review us. It helps support the work we do. Thank you for joining us on BofC Live today. We're able to do what we do thanks to our ongoing partners, including Cannabis at Work, Cannabis Benchmarks, Can Delta, Headset, Gallagher, and Torque & Mains.